What's up, bosses? Welcome to About Her Business, the podcast where we leave all the gossip at the door and get straight down to business. I'm your host, John Tate, and today I have serial entrepreneur, Miss Sunshine Lewis. Now, Miss Lewis is a licensed CNA professional, a nurse, also, she's an advocate and she's an author and a podcaster. And she's here today to give us all the tips on about her business. So, ladies, grab those cups, those notepads, and let's get down to it. The meeting is now in session. Welcome, Miss Lewis.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we are super excited to hear about all your different businesses and how you become successful in each one of them. So, are you ready to begin?
Yes, let's get into it.
Yes, ma'am. So let's start off with your name, Sunshine. It carries a very powerful origin story rooted in hope. How has that meaning shaped the way you show up in your life and in your work?
I would say for me, I think that the name has given me that push to show up in a positive light because it's almost like when you say sunshine, it's kind of weird to think of negativity coming behind it because it's like in a storm, it's something that you pray for. It's something that you seek out as a sign of hope, of better days. And so to have that type of name, to me, it would be weird to be the type of person to carry around bad energy. So I kind of want to exhibit myself the way that people think about sunshine. When you think about sunshine, you think of it as a sense of hope. It's kind of like the way I want to show up. When people call out for me or call on me, I want to be that sense of hope. So it's really pushed me to be a good person. Maybe not the best of person to some
Mhm,
people, but it's definitely encouraged me to always try to do my best to show up as the best version of myself.
mhm. And just a quick follow-up question on that, Miss Lewis. When we talk about your name, Sunshine, did you feel a lot of pressure to maintain that name of being positive?
I would say yes, just because when I was growing up, a lot of people thought that I was given my name because of me smiling all the time. That's not the case. My dad gave me the nickname at birth. At first, I heard this funny story, and I don't know who told it, but somebody was like, my dad said I was the blackest little thing he ever seen shine without Vaseline. And then one day, a couple of years ago, my dad called me and he was telling me when your mom was in labor with you, it was so much adversity around trying to get you here. I think like she was in labor, but they didn't have a bed at the hospital. They saw that I was coming breech, so they were afraid to deliver me there. So they wanted her to go an hour away to Jackson and they didn't have transportation available. So my
Mhm,
dad drive his personal car with my mom in labor to Jackson with me coming breech. He said it was like storming. He told me, he said it was so much hell around trying to get you here. I wanted to give you a name that gave you hope. When he told me that, I was like, I'm so glad that when he gave me that name, it signified something for him because it has played a very big part of who I am as a person. Even though people originally thought my nickname was Sunshine because of me smiling all the time, those very smiles have hid so much of my pain. And so my pastor would always say there's a song where it talks about ministering to yourself when you're ministering to somebody else. And I
mhm,
guess that name has been that for me, even in like my darkest days, just having somebody to call me and just hearing them say my name, it was enough to just like, you know what you represent, right? You represent that hope, you represent that strength. So there has been times where even just the calling of my name has even spoke something into me during the time that I've been going through. So it definitely has done its work.
okay. Thank you for sharing with us and being vulnerable with us in that moment. Not only does your name means beauty, but you've taken your name and expanded it into multiple businesses. Let's start off with you spending a decade in nursing. At what point in nursing did you realize that your calling extended beyond that clinical care into the community, helping the community build an entrepreneurship?
Well, I started out as a CNA and I only worked in the field probably about 9 months. because I remember, number one, I could tell that being a CNA, those that were above me, the nurses and, the DONs and everything, they
Mhm.
really looked at CNAs as kind of like the bottom of the barrel. When
Mhm.
really they're the ones who are carrying these facilities. The CNAs are truly the ones that are carrying it. You have the LPNs that are just giving out medicine, and you got the RNs who are just sitting at the desk collecting a check. And it's like what they're doing seems to be lesser than thou. Whereas I started at that bottom of the barrel. I take a lot of pride in working alongside a CNA, and especially one that's working with me. Here. So when I first became a nurse, I worked in a restorative care, rehabilitative care that was placed in the hospital, but it
Mhm.
was for those people that had been discharged from the main hospital and kind of weren't ready to go home. And so I enjoyed doing that, but I remember I applied for this job being like a staff nurse for this place that they had taken individuals who were once hospitalized in institutions
Mhm.
and pretty much now. Well, a lot of the individuals that they had come from institutions, and what their plan was to put them in housing out in the community and try to incorporate them into the community along with everybody else. Hey, I might have a disability, but I'm still a human being. I still require the same things that you do. That's not what he said. His mission was not really what I was seeing as a staff nurse. I was seeing kind of like these people being treated like their disability. They were being given their medicine and they're brought to a facility where they're sitting still all day long, like no activities, no nothing. And so there was one client of mine that I took care of when I read up on him, because I love to know about my people. I like to know what got you here. I remember when I read up on him, it was in his chart that he had been dropped off at a facility when he was 8 years old. It was in his chart that his mother said she wanted nothing else to do with him. That if they
Mhm.
had questions, they were to contact his sister. And here I was looking at this man who was now 50 years old. This man would come in every single day. He pretty much had like the mindset of a teenager or a young child, but
Mhm.
every day he would come in and he would hug me and he would tell me he loved me and he had this jolly energy. And I remember that blowing my mind as to this was a child that was 8 years old when somebody gave him up and said, "I want nothing to do with you." 42 years later, he is the one person that's walking in this door and embracing people and saying, "I love you," and he's smiling. And he's probably endured things that I could never imagine for saying, wow, how much are we missing out on? Because on the outside looking in, we're going to say, "Oh, okay, don't want to have anything to do with him because he has a disability." This person embodies a spirit that most people want to have every day. You want to be told I love you. You want to know that somebody is excited about seeing you. And he could barely even say my name, but when he would try to say it, he would run to me as if like you have just made my day.
Mhm.
So being present for those individuals, the ones that people have shut off and said, "Hey, you don't belong," or "You're not the norm," and
Mhm.
really seeing how brilliant they were, it made me want to dig into that community now, see that, okay, maybe there's things that I'm overlooking in people in my everyday life.
Yeah.
You just think that it's supposed to be this way or that person has it this way when it really may not be. I think working with them and seeing that even in their disability, they all possess this one particular thing about them that made them worthy of being accessible to a facility. Or in my life, I had one that would come in every day and he would read me the news. So that
Mhm.
comfort to me because I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about keeping up with the news because I know every day he comes in, that means something to him to come up to me and say, "Hey, Miss Sean, you seen this on the news?" I had one that you could ask him, "What is September 2nd, 2056?" And within a split second, he can tell you what day of the week it's on.
Wow.
Something
Oh,
that I can't even, after taking care of
uh-huh.
him 10 years ago, can't even, I still can't even put into how he did that. But
Mhm.
so I really think that being able to be around them and learn so much from them, the people that have been considered the outcasts and have to be considered just their disability, I think it brought a greater love and funness for what I do because I feel like I got the chance to unlock a door that other nurses may not get the chance because you're just looking at those that are sick. But what about those that have been overlooked or rejected or, not even been seen? Being able to be in their space and be accepted in their space meant a lot to
Thank you for sharing. As a current student and I get to work with people with disabilities, I couldn't have said that better. It gives you a sense of purpose to work with that community and see how talented they really are and offer those opportunities where they may feel isolated. So again, Miss Sunshine, you're doing exactly what your name represents, and that's spreading that positivity everywhere you go. Now,
me.
you did mention CNAs a minute back. And you moved away from nursing and became a CNA instructor. How did that shift change the way you saw impact in the healthcare field?
I never when I was a young girl, I always said I either wanted to do nursing or I wanted to be a teacher. I never actually thought about it being in a blended situation. When I got into nursing, it's like, okay, well, the teaching is out the window because I'm definitely not going back to school. I honestly one day was just strolling on Indeed. I seen that the place was looking for a CNA instructor. And I filled out the application and I didn't even think anything else about it. Maybe 6 months down the line, the lady reached out to me and she was like, "Are you still interested in this?" At first, I was like, "Okay, I'm not sure if this is something that I can do or wanna do," but I'm like, "Let me
Mhm.
go." Told her, I said, "Let's meet up. You tell me what it is, what you're expecting, because I am the type of person where I don't take anything that I do in vain. And I'm not the type of person where I want to show up and give half of who I am or what I can offer. I'm definitely not the person that just says, okay, give me that job because I need a job or give me that job because I want the job, but yet I'm not willing to show up 100%. Once I met with her and she told me what she was expecting, I felt like, hey, this fits me perfectly. I started working. And I think the biggest thing for me when I first started was gonna be like the respect level. I'm very big on respect. I very little tolerated
Mhm.
disrespect. My biggest thing was, am I gonna get students that come in, maybe I look young, because a lot of people are shocked that I'm in my 40s. They look at me and they think that I'm in my 20s. So I'm just like, number one is gonna be about the respect. I set that tone on the first day. Not tolerate no disrespect. You came here to be the student. I came here to be the teacher. Once that was out of the way, even now, going into 3 years later, I've never had that situation where people have disrespected me. My oldest student has been 72
Mm.
and the youngest student has been 18. But what really made teaching very impactful for me was one of my first students. I had this young lady in there and it became I was already doing my mental health stuff. So we would have heart to heart conversations. I've always been the type of teacher where I tell them that if I'm not going to show you all the compassion that I'm asking you all to go out into the field and have for your patient, then I'm a hypocrite. So if it one of my students coming in saying, "Hey, I'm really just going through something right now. Let's take 20 minutes before we start. Turn the lights off, play meditation music." So I started building that type of relationship with my students. I remember one of them came to class one day and she said, "Miss Shine, I spent so much of my life on welfare and not trying to do anything with myself because nobody never told me that I could. Nobody made me feel like I was worthy of anything or that they believed in me." She says, "I just settled. I got pregnant early and I just settled in the project." And so to hear her speak her truths that for 30 some years I've chose to settle because I never once was told I had the capability. And neither did she see it in herself. When school first started, she was failing a lot of the assignments. After that conversation, she came one day and told me that she was sitting in her room doing her work. She said her son came to the doorway and told her, "Mom, I'm proud of you. I'm
Mm.
proud of you for finally putting yourself first and doing something that you wanna do." She said she's always had the heart and compassion to take care of other people, and she always wanted to be a CNA. She just never believed that she could be. After she told me that story, every test after that, she passed, she graduated the highest average out of all my students. She was
Mhm.
first of all the students that I've taught who became certified. Is to be a part of someone's story like that
Mhm.
opened up my mind to like, this is more than just a job. This is more than just teaching people about what the state of Mississippi wants you to know about being a CNA, but you taking the 6 weeks or the 10 weeks or the 2 weeks that you have with these individuals and allowing them to see themselves in a different light. I tell all my students, if you do all these things for yourself, when you do it for somebody else, it's gonna be like a piece of cake. Right? Getting paid for doing what you do anyways for yourself. But if you cheat yourself, you'll cheat other people. If you'll overlook yourself, you'll overlook other people. If you don't think highly of yourself, you're not going to think highly of other people because your mind is going to tell you, if I can deal with it, so can they. So if you're the type of person where you're used to people shutting you down and not worried about your emotions, when your patient is telling you, Shine, you haven't been in here and check on me. I'm like, okay, why is that a big deal? People don't check on me all the time. And these are people that you have to be humanized to treating yourself like a human being so that
Mhm.
it doesn't look like people are asking too much of you when you're going on your job. And
Yeah.
also when you go on your job, they're telling you what their expectations of you is. It's not
Mhm.
fair for you to do the job and then go and say, you want me to clean her butt? You want me to respond to the call? Like,
Right.
you want me to take care of sick people? How dare you
Mhm.
want me to clean poop?
Right.
So it's just like I try to give them real life scenarios so that they actually get the time during that process to think about, is this for me?
Mhm.
I'm not really doing this for the right reasons because I tell them all the time, like I had to walk in and find my grandfather deceased on his kitchen floor because in his mind, he thought that going to a nursing home was a death sentence. That nobody who goes to a nursing home ever comes out alive. It's one way in and a deathbed out. Because of it, I could not get him when I really needed him to go and get that rehabilitation. I couldn't get him to go because he was thinking like, no, this is like my final ride. I know if y'all put me in there, there's no coming back for me.
She just said share information with us on being a CNA. But Miss Lewis, I want to just stay there for a moment and get the steps it takes to becoming a CNA instructor. You are on that license, and I just want to know, is it on a state basis? You get licensed in one state and practice in all states. How does that work? And what do you need to become certified?
I know in Mississippi, we have to apply for the Mississippi Department of Human Services. One of the main qualifications for them is that you have to have worked in the long term care for at least 2 years. And
Mm.
so once you apply through them and then you're approved, then it's all about the facility that you worked for. You have to be entered in up under their facility because I currently teach at college level and I also teach at an allied health school. I'm over the program I put them in when they start training with us, whereas at the college, the director over the program does all of that. A lot of them look for RNs. I don't know if I'm just by the grace of God have got blessed to go in as an LPN, but you can teach as LPN. But I know a lot of them like looking for RNs. But as far as getting your instructor and being up under the Department of Human Services, you do have to apply for an application. The company that you're working up under would have to submit an application for you to become an instructor. Like I said, the application, it's not hard. It's literally one page. But I know one of the main qualification was that you had to have at least 2 years of long-term care service. But that it wasn't difficult to become an instructor. I've been doing it since 2023. It currently just switched over to TMU or headmaster, but it's not hard though. At the college, I teach there, but I don't have to oversee the program. So I don't have to worry. I'm not the one that puts the students in. I just am strictly at the lecture. Some of the other schools I teach at, I do the training courses complete. So I'm over all of those things, which gives me access to be able to follow the student even after they graduate, have access to their testing and all of that stuff and where they're employed. That's probably the most thing that I like about being an instructor approved through the Mississippi Department of Health because I do have access to those records.
So thank you for sharing. And as you all heard, all it takes is just a little bit of experience and dedication. And you too could be a CNA instructor.
Yep.
Now we've covered the nurse and we've covered the CNA instructor. Let's talk about the advocate. In 2019, you created an online group that eventually turned into an in-person community events. What problems were you trying to solve at the time before you even knew it would grow?
Well, starting the group in 2019, I did not even start it for it to become something that was going to be sociable, like actually a community group. I thought of something just simply online. I originally just started with simply Dear Black. The concept of it was I was going through depression at the time, and I'm just like, where are people at? Like, where are the people that
Mm,
you can have those open conversations? And then more so like, where are my black people? Like, where are the black people that you can talk about anything? So that's where the Dear Black came from. It got up to almost 900 members, got us shut down multiple times.
oh,
And it was because it was real, authentic conversations. Like there may be someone that may post and ask about question about religion. Someone may post and ask a question about a job. Someone may post and ask a question about relationship, about sex. I mean, there was a lot of things that I learned
mhm.
started this group. I tell you.
All right.
And so, like I said, this happened in 2019, at the very end of 2019. So what really made it flourish was when the pandemic hit and
Mhm,
everybody in at home, and so this became like main line of communication for a lot of people. And
mhm.
so 21 rolled around, one of the guys was like, "You know what? We should meet up. Like we should meet each other because like, a lot of people were from my hometown, but there were a lot of people that were from other states and stuff too." And so that's how the meetup came about in 21.
Awesome.
Okay. I'm a strong head.
Mhm.
Um, it's just in me. I don't like stupidity. It's a lot of things that irritate me very quickly. This is how I was at this particular time. And on top of that, I'm having a lot of people that were in my group like, look, I don't deal with people like that. I don't hang with it was
Mhm.
just a whole bunch of what I don't do, but yet they were doing it. Y'all are
Right.
actually
Yeah.
communicating with other people. We're building a group. So when we started meeting up socially with each other, I think at some point in time, I noticed that you know how you may have a group of people together, but we don't mesh for one reason or another. Like maybe you're a soft spoken person. Me being a loud spoken person may make you feel some type of way. Maybe you weren't raised around people who talk loud or people that could be kind of aggressive like me because
Right.
my 0 to 60 was like 0 to 2 million very fast. I'm very direct. When I start to talk, I could care less about the feeling part. Like, I had this building rented out to do a birthday event, and we had a family situation that happened with my niece's daughter. She was murdered. And so I just needed to use the space. And so I was like, you know what? Since we are having these little backhanded arguments because apparently we don't know how to talk to each other, I was like, let's just have a meeting. Let's all meet up and sit down, be transparent, tell each other who we really are so that we can better service each other, especially if we're going to try to continue to be a unit. And that meeting is what turned into the Chainbreaker luncheon. And so, because I realized it was the first time that I realized that your childhood trauma affects who you are in the now. It affects how you see being raised. It affects how you see surviving, how you see blending with other people. And so, once we started to do things in the community, I remember one day we did a kids event.
Mm,
The trauma that all of us were playing out in these meetings, it kind of hit me. And I was like, well, what if a child runs up to me and she is my 6-year-old hurt? What would
mhm,
I tell her? Would I tell her the most damaging things that I could possibly tell her because of my trauma? Because what I endured, well, I dealt with it. You can too. So would I tell a 6-year-old, like, you'll be okay. Forget them. Don't worry about your parents. Like things are gonna only be more traumatic to her. Or would I speak to her from a healed place? Would
mhm.
I tell her that today it does look like the worst of the worst, but I promise you it's gonna get better. Some things that we could do to try to make it better. So that played very heavy on me. And so that's what I relayed back to my group that if we're going to do things in the community, then we first have to start with ourselves, healing ourselves so that if we run into those broken age children as we were, and as we have discussed in our meetings, we're going to be prepared to lead those kids down a different path than we took. That was very important to me. I didn't want to replicate our brokenness. I wanted to replicate our healing self. So that was what became very important for me.
Let's talk about Chainbreakers. You said it began without a full roadmap. Yet it evolved into something that's very consistent now and very impactful. What did
Mhm.
you learn about leadership by starting before you felt like you were ready?
What did I learn about it? I learned that God is very intentional and that when he says he wants you to do something, then that's just what it is. Chain breakers is indeed not something that I sat down and masterminded myself. It was never anything that I would have chosen to take leadership of because it's a very vulnerable thing. People being transparent and talking about their traumas and their hurt, it's a very heavy ownership. And to take it on, I probably say like the first year of hosting Chain Breakers, I never felt so exhausted in my life after those meetings. It was like I was consuming the weight of the world from everybody, every story thing I was taking. And at times I didn't want to do it anymore just because I felt like, why are you sending this upon me to do when I still have broken things that I need to fix myself? And again, it came back to him showing me that you are going to fix yourself, but you're going to fix yourself while you do it exactly what I'm telling you that you are designed to do. And that's how it happened. Literally, every step of my healing process came by way of another person's story. And so I say all the time, even with the Truth Be Told podcast, and we have the chamber meetings that one person's survival story can be the next person's survival guide. Individuals who sat in these meetings and were transparent about their life kept giving me that stepping stone. You can overcome this. Like, you think you had it bad? Look at what they said. And
Mhm.
sitting right here. They're sitting right next to you in a time where you thought you had it bad. And y'all
Mhm.
sit in the same spot. So listen, you can keep on climbing because your stuff was nowhere near that hard. Those individuals encourage me. And when people come up to me and say, thank you for having this, people came to those meetings and said things that they never told anybody before.
Mhm.
I've been confessed things. I remember one lady came in and talked about being molested when she was younger. And a lady that had known her for about 10 years had brought her. And when she confessed it, she was like, I didn't even know that about her. And I've been knowing her 10 plus years. But it was
Mhm.
just like God came in and set the tone. And that became like my greatest, I'm not going to say pride because everything dealing with the chain breaker I give honor and glory to God. But I think in that moment, I took so much humbleness in Him choosing me to be
Mhm.
the leader of something that was so impactful.
Uh, and again, you've created a space for not people with just disabilities, but you've created a space for children and families. What is all these spaces so important for you? And for say both healing and for celebration, why are those important?
I would have to say, being a broken little girl, knowing in my mind all the time, like that one little thing that I felt like would have fixed it. And
Mhm.
probably I think that was just being seen, being heard. It's like I remember I would always hear people talking about how I cried all the time. But
Mhm.
yeah, I never had not one person ask me why I was crying. So it's I was like, you constantly hear people judging you without
Mhm.
questioning. I started to understand from 21 to 26, I have seen that there is a why behind every action somebody does. One of the young ladies that came into my group, she was a very promiscuous person. I
Mhm.
remember at the first chain convention that we had, one of the other members talked about being put out when she was 12 or 13 years old because they were Jehovah's Witness, and she had gone out and had sex. Because
Mhm.
of this, she was gone from the church as well as shunned by her mother. Because of that, she used sex as a coping mechanism, like a weapon for her. In her mind, she had to have sex every day. I sat here and watched her tell her story, and I watched this other young lady evolve into something else. For her, listening to her, I could see the light bulb go off, explaining to her, this is the reason why I see myself this way. This is
Mhm.
the reason why this feels fulfilling to me. And then I watched both of those young ladies go from being a type of individual to say, "Hey, I need sex every day," or "I need to throw my body out on men." This young lady who said, "I've had sex every day of my life for the last past up 10 years," called
Right.
me. I'm gonna choose celibacy for 30 days.
Mm.
I had the other one who came and said, I mean, literally, I've never seen her throw herself at men since that meeting.
Mm.
I've never seen her throw herself out on me in this type of promiscuous way since that meeting in
Right.
2021. So it was like when I started seeing those light bulbs go off, a lady used to come. It was her and her two daughters. And I didn't even know this at the time because she was hanging out with us, but I didn't even know until she said it at the meeting. She was like, "Me and my girls have been going to therapy for 2 years. And it
Mhm.
has been nowhere near impactful as it's been just coming right here, bringing them here with me." And her daughter, she had a 17-year-old that had a baby. And because we were talking so much about childhood trauma, and a lot of the trauma everybody was speaking on was coming from a mother. They had just got through talking about how they bicker a lot. So I asked her, with you being a mother, tell me one thing that you'll do for your child that you didn't get enough of as a child. And she said, I'm going to give my child more hugs. And I
Right.
think the whole spirit broke because I couldn't imagine that a hug could change how somebody thought, how somebody perceived love. And that's what she had been wanting all this time. And her mom just stopped in her track and she was like, this whole time I'm thinking that what my kids want is for me to provide, for them to have light and water and gas. I'm not thinking about hugs and affection. And that's what her baby wanted. And so it blew my mind, but it changed my mind because it's like it showed me how in life, we will set forth what we think is best for other people, and we have no idea. So
Mhm.
let me know that maybe going out here trying to give my kids everything that they want, or high quality of this or high quality of that. I need to go out here and work this amount of hours. I need to go stay away from the house all day to make this money to give them this when all they want is me.
Mm.
Even when I started doing my podcast, I had a young lady come on and her daughter was on the call. And the daughter, she had to give up to be raised by her grandmother because she was incarcerated when she was pregnant with her. And so I think as a comfort for her, she made it like, okay, I had to give her up, but she was with my grandmother. My grandmother was financially stable. She was able to drive all the nice cars and all this and that. And I never forget her daughter got in the check. And she said, even with all of that, I still wanted my mom.
Mhm.
She said, "Because I had all of those things, but I didn't have anybody to prepare me for prom. I didn't have anybody to talk to me about this." I had to stop her because I knew it was a comfort for her to think all these years that, like, I did what was best. I
Mhm.
didn't want her to overlook her daughter saying that even in you thinking you're doing your best, I still needed you. I didn't want to take that moment away from her daughter, so I stopped the conversation and made sure that she acknowledged that even though you thought she was in the best situation, she
Mhm.
still is telling you she would have chosen to be with you in your worst situation.
Everybody give Miss Lewis a round of applause because she just gave us examples of how something as simple as a hug can completely shift the mindset in relationships. Now, Miss Lewis, I do want to talk about two of your events, the mental health tea party and the senior luncheon. They're both deeply rooted in personal uniqueness. What made you choose these formats to start conversations around mental health?
Well, with the first came the senior luncheon. So originally when I started the group, there was something that happened based around the school and everybody was talking about kids. And so I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, then let's do something about it. Like I was telling my group members, like, let's start a fund. We're gonna take up money every month, and then at graduation time, let's try to honor at least 1 to 3 students with a tuition bonus from the group. And so that's what we did. I think about 10 of us started this little pot, and every month we would put in like $20, $30. And
Mhm.
so, like I said, it started at the end of 19. So, of course, all of 2020, everybody stressed out. We went through the pandemic. Came 21, I was talking to one of my classmates, and she was a member of the group. And I was telling her about the scholarship fund that we were taking up. She was talking about how her daughter graduated during COVID, and it was disheartening because she was her only child, and the moment of seeing her daughter graduate was taken away because they had to graduate virtually or graduate with just one attendant. She was very hurt by that because that was a moment that you can't get back. I remember thinking, when you graduate, you've gone from pre-K to 12th grade, and all
Mhm.
your parents get is like, "Oh, woo, that's my baby." And before you can even get that out, they didn't call the next person's baby's name. So
Mhm.
we're going to do a senior luncheon where we're going to give the parents stage time to honor their child. Why this moment is so special. When I listened to her talk about how special her daughter was to her, I was like, I guarantee you, if more kids had the opportunity to really hear their parents speak on them and how proud they are of them, I couldn't imagine that being a greater way to start your future off. And so that's how I built it around. We're going to give these parents this 2 to 5 minute window to come up here, tell us about their baby, tell us why you're proud of your child. And so that's how I built it around. And so I had speakers to come and talk with the kids. And the first year I had it, I had a niece that was shot in the face, and she passed away from it. He was 15 at the time. She was 14 at the time. And so she would have graduated in 2021. And so I wanted to honor her as well. And so it did shift the energy between me and their mom because their mom, me and her actually first cousins, were born same year, same month, just 2 apart. When she had them, this is your aunt. So I've always acknowledged them as my aunt, as my niece and nephew.
Mhm.
But she got upset with me because she wanted me, by them being so close in age, he was due to graduate as well in 2021. So she wanted me to honor him as well. And I'm just like, I can't do that. You know, spiritually, I can't do it because how do I honor her and acknowledge her not being here and acknowledge the person and the reason why she's not here as well?
Mhm.
So it kind of caused a shift with me and her. But overall, it was very beautiful because I even had another classmate of mine who honored someone else's son. It was her son's best friend. This baby had spent majority of his senior year at their house. She was like, because he did not have the type of attention that he wanted from his parent, she wanted to be there to give him that praise. So for her to take the time out to come up with her and her husband to honor this child, to tell him that, like, hey, you may not have your mother there, but we're here. We see you. We stand behind you. It was just very beautiful. It was a tearjerker. We boohooed in there because it was even a young lady in there. She had lost her son's house had burnt down months prior to the event, and she was just talking about how he was so humble throughout the situation. So it was very nice to honor those kids that either didn't get the chance to be honored because of COVID or just needed that extra boost to say, hey, we see you, we see all of your hard work and your hard efforts, and this is the reason why we're acknowledging you in this moment.
And thank you again for being vulnerable with our audience. We truly appreciate you, Miss Lewis. So we've covered three. We've covered the CNA, we've covered the nurse, we've talked about the advocate. Now let's get into the last two, which is the author and the podcaster. You currently have two books on Amazon. Can you go into the titles of those books and talk a little bit about what pushed you to put your story and your insights into writing instead of just holding it all in?
Okay. Well, first of all, I've been writing since I was a kid, probably since I was maybe 10. There's no telling how much stuff I would have if I actually had all of my stuff, but I've always loved to write poetry, songs, scripts, all kind of things. I never very much so got into writing like long stories, but I would write little mini stories, short stories, and stuff like that. I think in 2019, around the time where I started the group, something sat on me very heavy. I started thinking about a lot of things. And one of the things that I was thinking about in the depression was that it's crazy how we coexist with each other every single day, and yet we all carry these different types of energies and emotions and characteristics, even when we find ourselves in the same place. I remember thinking about being in a public place and you've got this person over here who's an anxious person all the time. Like, what does that look like? A person who's anxious all the time coexisting with me. Here you've got this person over here who has a jealous spirit. You've got a person over here who has an oppressed spirit. Like, what does that look like in an everyday format? And that is what started me writing on the devotional. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go down through the alphabet and I'm gonna find an emotional characteristic for every single alphabet. That's how I came up with the alphabet scenario. I was like, okay, this will give me the opportunity to write multiple stories, but in different light. Then I thought about, okay, I'm gonna put scriptures in it because I love God and I know that He can find His way in any situation. Once I wrote the book, God said, "Go back and put those scriptures in the story." So I went back and all the scriptures that I found for each one, I incorporated them inside of the story. So, like in the book, you'll see where the bold prints are the scriptures. Well, he told me the reason why he wanted me to do that. He said, when people are reading these stories, I want them to know that no matter if it's at the beginning of the story, they're in the middle of your story, or at the end of your story, I want them to know that I can find my way in the midst of it all. Like, I don't have to show up at the end of their story. I don't have to show up right at the beginning. I might show up right in the middle, but no matter what they're going through, I can show up. And so in every single story, there's scriptures. And so to me, that represents how he can show up. It doesn't matter if you're oppressed. It doesn't matter if you're resilient. It doesn't matter if you're humble, but whatever you are, whatever you're going through, he can find his way to show up. And so that's how that book came about. And I remember after I wrote it, I was talking to my dad, and I can't remember what he was talking about, but I remember him breaking it down to the shifts of the day, the difference between what the world looks like when the sun is out versus what the world looks like when the sun goes down. And now it's the moon's time. And so that's where the sun and the moon came from, because it's about the shift of the day. It doesn't matter where you find yourself in the day, whether it's in the midst of the sunlight or whether it's up on the illumination of the moon, God can find himself to be devoted to you. So it was just a lot of mindful things that came about with it. And like I said, for me, it was another thing where when I wrote this, I had no clue that Chainbreakers was coming. I had no clue that he was preparing me to speak life into other people. I had no clue I was gonna be a CNA instructor. I just did not have no clue. And on top of that, this book was wrote began in 2019. I finished it in 2020. It wasn't published until 2024. And
Mm.
fiance, I sent it to my fiance and I was like, I just need somebody to read this and just tell me, like, what do you think? I've been sitting on it for 4 years. And when she reached back out to me, she was asking me questions, and I'm just, like, answering them, and then I remember one time, like, "Where did that come from? Like, that sounds like something I would say." And she's like, "You did say it in your book." And I had completely forgot even what I wrote. So that was God showing me that even before you know the plans that I have for you, I will put it into position and place.
Amen. And y'all stick around because we're gonna get all that information. So if you want a copy of Miss Lewis' book, you'll know exactly where to find it. We only have a few more minutes, Miss Lewis, and we have a couple more questions for you. We've been talking about your podcast, Truth Be Told, throughout the entire interview today. And it centers around real stories and lived experiences. What made you decide that storytelling was the best medium for this work?
I go back to say that one person's survival story can be the next person's survival guide. And I think that with every single story that I've heard, if it's not been a light bulb that's went off in my head, it's been a light bulb that has gone off to a listener to even sometimes the person who is telling the story because they have not gotten the opportunity to have the light be shined on their transparent moment. And they speak something that is like, oh, you just dropped a jewel on me. And they know that it's a jewel because guess what? They've never been able to be transparent. They've never been able to just speak their truth. And so many people don't understand how much truth it is in your transparency. And on top of that, it takes the weight off of you. You know, when you don't feel like I have to continue every single day I get up, I have to keep packing up this baggage that I don't want anybody to see. If somebody were to break in my house while I'm gone, I want to make sure I done packed up my hurt. How dare they come in here and cipher through my trauma, my drama, and all those things. And so you will realize that you'll spend more time packing away your problems than you will unpacking your pain. And so I realized that if I unpack, I don't have to keep repacking it because it's no longer necessary in my life. And so that is the reason why, like I say, it's no ownership, no honor to me. Everything that I do in this moment is all honor to God. I have told him that I don't want to be in the way of anything. So, like when he speaks to me, I just seen a young lady's post about domestic violence. Me and my fiance have been talking about me starting the podcast, but I'm all about training. When I seen her post something about domestic violence, I know bits and pieces of her story, but I would love to hear this young lady's true story. And so it started from there. I don't have anything that I ask them in advance. I just want them to feel like it's girlfriend talk. And I want you to open up and express whatever it is that you feel on your heart in that moment. I've had some people sign up and then as the days get closer and their spirit feels itself being able to be on a platform of transparency, it locks up because everybody does not want to tell their truth.
That's true.
But I tell people all the time, and even though me and my dad don't currently speak, I still hold true to him asking me this question, changed my life. But one day we were having a conversation and he said, let me ask you something. He said, what would you do if every day you walked outside of your house, there was a bubble above your head that told your deepest, darkest secrets to everybody you passed? And when he said that, I was like, can you imagine trying your hardest to protect something? And the only thing you got to do is step outside and there's a bubble that tells everything that you're trying to hide. Tell people. So it's just like if I was a little promiscuous and I like to be outside, I like to be a little hoish, but I put on my two-piece suit and I walk outside and I hold my chest up. And as
Right.
soon as I step outside, it's an alert on my head. And I'm just like, see, this ain't gonna be right. Now I'm wondering why these people look at me upside my head. But meanwhile, all of my secrets on display. I remember in that moment, I said, no, if anybody's gonna tell my secret, it's gonna be me.
Mhm.
And I won't allow anything to shame me because if you've been there, it's already done.
Mhm.
I don't have to hold myself hostage. He told me one day when I was riding, he said, Shine, every time I bring you out,
Mhm.
you run back. He said, I keep bringing you out. You keep running back.
Mm.
There you go, running back to the same problem that I keep pulling you out of. It's like a magnet. So when he told me that during one of the meetings, one of my members, because he was real big on nobody knows what I'm going through. Nobody knows what I'm going through. So my dad did a demonstration and he said, let me show you what's going on. So he put a cup on the floor and he said, okay, this is your problem. He said, and every time you get away from the problem, you keep running back and picking it up. He said, and then when you get ready to walk out from it again, you feel like, yeah, I don't need this. You put it down. But then as soon as you get too far away, you keep running back and picking it up. So after he did it about 3 times, he came back to the cup. He said, you want to know why you keep running back? Because this your heart and you won't take your heart out of it. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, whatever you're not willing to take your heart out of, you will never run away from because a man needs his heart to live. It made sense that when we say we're not worried about it, but yet it put a stain on our heart, it's put a pain in our heart, we can say it, but meanwhile, we still living it because we still
Right.
get pain, we still connected to it. Like you said, a man can't live without a heart. So you'll accept that pain because without your heart, you cannot live. So it's like, okay, if I got to live with that pain in my heart, I will. But you don't have to.
Oh my goodness. Dad was dropping all the wisdom. And again, we're just grateful that you're sharing because I've heard some of those things growing up, but to actually sit here now at this age and hear those things all over again, he's right. So, not only have you created all these safe spaces for people, you also on Tuesdays give others the mic to share their truth. What event is that? And what do you think happens when people finally feel like they're being seen and heard?
I think something beautiful happened. I think every time I had one of my last 2 interviews, the last interview, the young lady, she was talking about acceptance, accepting losing it all and then having to rediscover yourself. But I remember in the conversation, she really spoke about a transparent moment in her life. And then when it was all said and done, she was like, you know what? I've never told anybody that.
Mhm,
Nobody knew that I went through that. And so for me, I felt good because I felt like there was a liberating moment because she found herself in a place to detach from that secret without even consciously thinking about it, which let me know that that chain was broken. Because when you keep something consciously in the forefront so that you don't forget to
mhm,
keep it a secret, it holds a lot of weight because
mm,
you now have to shift those things around to make sure, okay, I can't open up this compartment over here because it's gonna say some things. And that's the reason why I never even ask, what are you gonna talk about? I never have any questions in advance because I don't want to give someone's spirit the opportunity to lock up and
mm,
deny you that opportunity of freeing yourself. And so many people that I reached out to afterwards, they'll tell me like, I really feel good letting go of it. Things look hopeful for me. I've had people say things in the moment that they didn't even plan on saying that kind of like hit them like,
mm,
why? That is what was going on. Or
mm,
what I can't overcome this because I've had to sit and tell a young lady that, hey, I see you. You don't have to feel that way anymore because I see it. Yeah, you're saying you're loved, you're heard. And so it's been a blessing. I even got the chance to speak with a lady from, I feel like she was Iranian, maybe. She spoke about being conditioned. You know, they're conditioned
mm,
to be this way and things like that. And I think the most powerful thing that she said to me was that she pretty much like hijacked her education, like deliberately failed just to keep herself from having to go into a career that her mother chose for her and not what she chose for herself. And I thought that like people need to hear that because there are people out here that have the capability to do a lot of things, but they're willing to dumb themselves down so that they don't blend in. Like I've even heard women tell their story where, you know, a woman say, hey, I'm not this big because I just want to be this big. I got this big because I didn't want to be desirable because I was
mm,
against it when I was younger. So I didn't want someone to see me as a sexual object. So I let myself get out of shape so that I wouldn't be desirable. But
wow.
these same people, they're not desirable even to their own selves. You know, that's what everything that we've talked about, that's how I know God is at the forefront of it because all of those things are full circle in my life. They all go hand in hand from my books to my meetings to my teaching. They all go hand in hand with who I am and how I want to show up in the lives of those people who God allowed me to meet because I see that as an honor. When I pray to Him, I tell Him, let me be a blessing in whichever way that you choose on this day to someone, whether it's a hug, whether it's a hi, whatever it is, let it be whatever it is that you want, you see fit for me. And so that's how I live my life. And so I try to make sure everything that I stand for represents that no matter whether I'm speaking or I'm just sitting, I still want to represent the same thing.
A absolutely, and again, thank you for thinking about everybody in the process because often that's the issue, somebody's left out, and from what we've heard of your story, you left not one spot uncovered, and we thank you for that, Miss Lewis. I do
And
want you to take all of those titles and put on the expert hat. Give us some boundaries you had to set the hard way to maintain being that serial entrepreneur, that fiance, and the mother?
I think the number one boundary that I found myself having to set is I've always been the type of person that I don't play about the people that I love. I had to learn how to stop playing about myself as well. I was in an abusive relationship very young, 18, 19 years old. And so the way I coped with that was making myself believe that I was stronger than him. Mentally, this was something that I could endure. I can endure the verbal abuse, I can endure the physical abuse, even though with the physical part, I'm definitely gonna bury them about the next person's mom's their dress before I let somebody put their hand on me. Psychologically, I never strayed away from that mental aspect of me thinking I'm stronger than everyone else. So I can endure someone backstabbing me. I can endure someone turning their back on me when I need somebody. And so I have just in the last past 2 years being with my fiance, had to put my foot down because I tell her all the time, it was never that I didn't see it. It was that I've always thought I'm stronger than the next person. So, hey, if you go do something and you decide you don't want to be my friend anymore, I'm strong enough to deal with it. That's cool. But I had to time within these last 2 years to realize that I wasn't doing a service to myself because what these individuals were seeing was someone now that they claim as being strong and someone who they don't have to be mindful of my feelings. They don't have to be mindful of the boundaries and things like that. I think the most difficult thing is having to set those boundaries with the people that mean the most to me. Those top 2 people have been my parents because who don't wanna have a wonderful relationship with their parents? But at the end of the day, it has gotten to the point where either I choose me and my boundaries and my peace, or I choose to allow them to dictate what that looks like. And I'm not willing to allow them to dictate what my peace looks like, what it looks like for me to be happy, love, and things like that. Like when I last talked to my dad, I told him it has nothing to do with me not loving you or you not loving me. It has everything to do with you understanding that your love has conditions and mine don't. Because the God that I serve, he doesn't have conditions. He loves us regardless. And I know that because my dad was once a man in the street. My dad once was a man who cheat. My dad once was a man who was a drunk all the time. Well, I'm not gonna call him a drunk, but he would heavily drink. And I know that even for me, there was a time where I didn't care. I wasn't trying to pray, but even in those times, so he still saw me. He still picked me up by the collar of the neck, like, come on, come get on over here, child. Like, so I've learned a lot of things, and like I said, I'm engaged now and being with my fiance. This is my first relationship and now engagement, with a woman. I've learned so much in the last 2 years, people in the LGBT community having to go through. I even thank God for putting me in a woman on woman relationship because for what I do in the mental health field, it's brought me a greater insight on what they have had to endure. It's very ugly. It's very sad. It's very heartbreaking how you can go from having someone give you praise to you being nothing in someone's eyes because you made a choice to allow somebody to love you and you love them back. That is what I have seen in the last 2 years. And so it's really shaped my mind different because these are people that gave me praise that are now like, well, I gave you praise, but I can't give you congratulations. And so again, even when it hurts, I'm still grateful that God chose me to be in these situations because I can choose to pull out the positivity in it. I'm still winning.
Amen. Amen. And
So I'm
congratulations on your upcoming marriage. You are what we truly call a survivor, a master, an expert. But we all combine into that one little phrase of serial entrepreneur. Let's talk legacy. When people look back at your work, Miss Lewis, what do you hope people see and what it stands for?
I stand true to the statement, may the works I've done speak for me. And so if there is no voice that will speak for me, I want everything that I've done during the time during my dash, cause like, we all got that dash. I just wanna make sure that during my dash, I lived a life that was meaningful and that was purposeful. I don't want people to sit around after I'm gone and talk about how I didn't matter, how what I did didn't have any purpose. So, when I get my flowers now, I'm okay with the flowers that I get now. They built a beautiful bouquet for me, and so it's one that I'm super proud of even now in my life while I'm living. And so it's just important for me that when it's all said and done, that if my life have to be summarized, that if there is no words, my bouquet of flowers that's presented will show you what I meant to people and what my presence and my prayers or my conversations or whatever it is how impactful they were. I think that's the most important thing for me is leaving a name that means something instead of the
I love it. And sadly, we run out of time today. But before we go, I want to make sure we get all those social sites, the websites, how we can sign up for your events, where we can get the books. Let us know all the details.
Okay, well, I have the Sun and the Moon, and I also have Mama's Baby. They're both on Amazon, and they also can be downloaded on Gumroad as well. Or you can pay for a paper book copy through Gumroad if you like to have it autographed and mailed to you. I can do that as well. I normally have those posted across my socials. I am Sunshine Lewis on Facebook, Sunshine M. Lewis on Instagram and Thread. I also am on TikTok. I'm under Sunshine Lewis. And then I also have YouTube channel as well. I've just started teaching some new classes, so I've kind of been pulled back on some of my meetings and stuff like that. But my Truth Be Told is hosted live on Zoom and my Facebook on Tuesdays. The next one I have is going to be on the 24th of February. I was speaking with a young lady that I'm excited to speak with. She actually just got married this past weekend. So I know that should be really good on March the 10th. I'm gonna be bringing back some of my previous guests so that we can have an updated powwow. Follow me on my socials, follow my TikTok. I do all of my motivational videos on TikTok. I would love to have you all come on over and follow me. Get a book. Mama's Baby is kind of drama book. It talks from the childhood perspective of drama. I don't think that a lot of people take into mind that kids feel the same pain that they watch their parents endure as well. So this book speaks from a child standpoint of seeing that mother be murdered in front of them, seeing that mother be abused in front of them, and how it psychologically affected them growing up. So that's what Mama's Baby is about. And then this is my devotional, The Sun and the Moon, a great day-to-day read. I've had people say they sat down and read it in one sitting. I would love your support. I also have a 30-day cup challenge available for download on Gumroad as well. For the 30-day cup challenge, it's pretty much a 30-day mindfulness journal where you are documenting at the end of the day whether or not your cup was empty or if your cup was filled. Did you fill someone's cup or did you empty someone's cup? Because a lot of times we aren't aware of those things that drain us on a day to day or those things that fill us on a day to day. So it's pretty much just a 30-day mindfulness journal for you to tap in to how you're being perceived and how you're giving away of yourself each day.
And all that information will be down below in the description box. Any last words before we adjourn our meeting today, Miss Lewis?
I would just like to say that it's been very beautiful sitting down, talking with you. I am grateful for the opportunity. I encourage you to keep going because I am very big on communication rules the nation. The more we can get people to open up and be transparent about life and not be ashamed of those things that shaped who we are, I think you'll get more people embracing them true selves. And so providing these platforms definitely is a stepping stone to do that. So thank you.
And that completes our time, you guys. Thanks again to Miss Sunshine Lewis, serial entrepreneur and Chainbreakers owner, for coming on and giving all her insights. And also be sure to subscribe wherever you receive your podcast so you never miss an upload. Also, leave us some comments down in that comment section and let us know which industry you think we should interview next. Until next time, keep those goals tight, that circle tighter, and that bank account growing.